1.
Don't miss KVNU Aggie Game Day on 102 FM 610 AM and at kvnutalk.com.
KVNU News Time is 5:03. I'm Bill Walter with this news update. If you are headed southbound, it looks like a wreck right around the Mantaway area. Not sure exactly where that is, if it's at the turnoff, but right around Mantaway on US 8991, actually headed, that would be northbound traffic, headed back towards Cache County. So be advised about that this afternoon. When and if the U.S. government shuts down on Sunday, the world as we know it will not end despite all the hand-wringing and drama on Capitol Hill. The staff of Roll Call, the Inside the Beltway website that covers Congress, has been keeping a running total of which government services will be impacted when the federal money runs out with the start of the new fiscal year. For retirees here in Utah, the best news is that their monthly Social Security allotments will not be delayed or postponed, because the funding for those checks is considered to be part of mandatory federal spending. It will not be interrupted by the government shutdown, nor will Medicare payments for retiree health coverage be affected for the same reason. Closer to home, however, Utah's tourism industry will take a hit to the tune of an estimated $7.1 million a day when federal funding for the Beehive State's busy national parks is cut off. Utah Governor Spencer Cox said Thursday that the tourism economy in the state is of vital importance. He has communicated to Interior Secretary Deb Haaland the plan to keep Utah's national parks open if she is willing to work with the state. There have been 14 shutdowns for similar reasons since 1980. The most recent was a partial shutdown in 2018 and 2019. It was also the longest. It lasted 34 days. A shutdown affects discretionary spending. Mandatory spending like Social Security, Medicare, and interest payment on the national debt is spared because it does not require annual congressional approval. Travelers can expect delays during the pending shutdown. Personnel like air traffic controllers and TSA workers are generally considered essential but may not keep coming to work after a few weeks without pay. Such absenteeism was a problem during the 34-day shutdown in 2018-2019. Delays can also be expected in obtaining veteran benefits, farm loans, and home mortgage closings that require federal flood insurance. KBNU News Time is 5:06. KBNU weather for tonight. Mostly clear skies is our forecast, and the overnight low around 50. And then breezy conditions tomorrow. Winds out of the south from make that 15 to 25 miles per hour during the afternoon tomorrow. Will be warmer, though, upper 70s for the high. And then a chance of rain showers by Saturday evening, rain showers and a slight chance of thunderstorms after midnight. It's been to 73 at 72 right now at KBNU. A big assortment of dining tables they recently picked up from name brand manufacturers, some with benches and swivel stools. And small tables to big tables for family gatherings. Just a sample of what you'll find at U&I Furniture. Always a better buy at U&I, downtown Logan, 28 West on First North.
It's been a crazy few months with big rainstorms fueling the weeds in your lawn, garden, or empty lot, and the spiders coming inside to beat the heat. You need help. Let Logan Extermination take care of those pesky weeds and unwanted pests with an exterior lawn application and interior treatment for bugs. Call Logan Extermination today before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Weed control starts at $45. Interior spider spray starts at $95.
KBNU News Time is 5:07. A federal child care grant is set to expire on September 30th, which is tomorrow, potentially leading to tens of thousands of children losing access to child care services in Utah. The federal Child Care Stabilization Grant is set to end, and the program has helped hundreds of Utah daycare centers stay open. As part of the 2021 American Rescue Plan Act, the Child Care Stabilization Grant provided qualifying daycares with $350 a child per month. However, this financial support is scheduled to end in October. An analysis conducted by the Century Foundation indicates that 663 child care centers in Utah are at risk of closure due to the termination of the program. In response to the looming crisis, a bipartisan bill has been introduced in the House aimed at enhancing 3 existing child care tax credits. Getting additional funding through Congress may be difficult during a fight over a potential government shutdown. And again, looking at backed up traffic on US 8991. This is leaving Brigham City, headed north to Cache Valley. Apparently an accident is what we're hearing in the Mattaway area this afternoon. Again, affecting northbound traffic. KBNU News Time is 5:09. You can always get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
If you've recently moved into our community or are attending Utah State, on behalf of the Cache Valley Media Group, we welcome you. As you settle in, we encourage you to support our local businesses. In fact, pick up a free copy of the Best of Northern Utah magazine. Let it be your compass for discovering the best our community has to offer, from quaint bookstores to delicious bakeries, electricians to dentists, coffee shops to florists. These businesses were voted the very best in our community. Go to bestofnorthernutah.com for magazine pickup locations.
Get prepared for the hunting season at the newly remodeled Mount Logan Laundry. Bring your hunting gear, sleeping bags, and coats into Mount Logan Laundry and use one of their 10 new 55 or 80-pound washers and 16 50-pound dryers. Dirty sleeping bags or quilts are no match for these new machines. Plus, also, they have free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
You've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. You have to carefully monitor your health for the rest of your life. And you have an increased risk of developing cardiovascular disease.
Cut. Take 2. Action.
You've been diagnosed with a new purpose: to fight for the amazing life you made for yourself. To look that risk of heart disease square in the face and say, no, not me. You've been given a new opportunity to live. Get started at NoDiabetesByHeart.org.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
As the leaves fall, so do the prices at Murdoch GMC Chevrolet Cadillac. Harvest the best deals during our Get Out and Drive sales event. The summer heat is cooling off, and there's no better time to get out and drive.
Right now, receive 2.1% for 5 years on a new Sierra 1500 double cab.
When you walk through our doors, you feel like family. At Murdoch Chevrolet GMC Cadillac in Logan or online at MurdochChevroletLogan.com. GMC, we are professional grade.
Call 866-628-3065 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 10/2/23.
When the war started, they protected me. Took better care of me than humans would have.
They're not people, Maya. It's just programming.
10 years ago today, the artificial intelligence created to protect us detonated a nuclear warhead in Los Angeles. This is a fight for our very existence.
Welcome to the For the People movie show. just a bit from the Creator official trailer in theaters as of, last evening here in Cache Valley. This is the big sci-fi, really, this to me looks like it should have been a summer movie. I don't know why. It's coming out here last weekend in September and will run throughout October. This is not a horror movie. This is a sci-fi movie. It looks fascinating. It looks beautiful, actually. The production value and the CGI, it looks amazing. But the story is pretty timely. It's a story of artificial intelligence. And the only criticisms I've heard of it, now we'll have a full review coming from Andy Morgan here in just a bit. He had a chance to see this week. But the only criticism I've heard, and one that I have, is the plot is a little bit close to the Terminator movies. A bit. But from what I've heard from those who have seen it, that is where the similarities end. This is from writer-director Gareth Edwards. He did what I still say is one of the best of the new era of Star Wars movies, Rogue One. He also did the only good Godzilla movie of the latest Godzilla reboot. The second one isn't worth your time. He did an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, do so, called Monsters. I don't even remember what Monsters is rated, but it is one of the creepiest, just tense, almost horror movie tension movies that isn't really gross violent. There's no nudity, and the violence that does exist is off camera and implied. But as the name implies, it is a movie about monsters, gigantic monsters, and I don't remember how they get here on our planet. And just humans trying to live amongst them. And the story of Monsters, a journalist is helping someone else travel kind of cross country to get to Texas from the Mexico area. And just an amazingly done movie. And that was the first I'd heard of Gareth Edwards. So my point is, this is a writer-director that knows what they're doing. The story of the Creator is it's set in a future war, in the middle of a future war between the human race and artificial intelligence. So I assume there are armies of some kind that the artificial intelligence has developed. A man named Joshua, a, quote, hardened ex-special forces agent grieving the disappearance of his wife, is recruited to hunt down and kill the Creator, the elusive architect of advanced AI who has developed a mysterious weapon with the power to end the war and humanity itself. Joshua and his team of elite operatives journey across enemy lines into the dark heart of AI-occupied territory, only to discover the world-ending weapon he's been instructed to destroy is an AI itself in the form of a young child. Some of the comments that I've heard about this movie from, some of the legacy movie critics in the New York Times and RogerEbert.com and others, fascinating, beautiful, thought-provoking, one you won't forget. These are just a handful of the reviews I'm seeing. So, again, we'll have a full review from Andy Morgan here in just a bit. He saw this just last night. And we'll have a chance to talk about it. Also in theaters this week, generally, Flora and Son Deliver Us, The Godfather Part 2, part of the 2023 ongoing classic series at Megaplex Theaters, is making the rounds, though not here in Logan. Although I never got a chance to see any of the Godfather movies in a theater. I might actually jump on that opportunity. Who knows? Paw Patrol, the mighty movie, is actually in theaters here in Logan alongside the Creator. That's one of the new ones this week. And Expendables 4 from last week, Haunting in Venice, and The Nun 2. And I just wanted to talk about this one a little bit. Andy, I don't know if you have anything to say about it, but I'm going to without having seen it, I'm going to pre-recommend Dumb Money, the GameStop story. just because this was very recent history, like two years ago. I'm surprised a movie's already been made about it, but this was one of the most bizarre, weird news events.
Yeah, I signed up for Robinhood like 5 seconds after it happened.
Did you really?
Which is like kind of the theme of my life, like day late, dollar short.
That Robinhood was so appealing, though, as an idea.
Well, people made a lot of money,
and then immediately it imploded as a scam.
And I think part of this had something to do with it, right? Because they were like, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't let poor people trade stocks," you know. Like, it's like FanDuel, right? Like, they're like, you could win $1 million, but you won't.
You know what my disappointment with this one is? They should have kept the book's title. It's based on a nonfiction book by journalist Ben Mesrick.
Yeah.
And he called his book The Antisocial Network, which I thought was kind of a cool title. But they changed but Dumb Money fits,
I mean,
because that's also
I'm like
what it's about.
There have been movie title changes in the history of movies. Like, one of the dumbest ones ever was the Live, Die, Repeat.
Which was I was so mad about that.
Which was really, and then it was like, because it was called.
I saw it the first weekend when it was called Tomorrow Never Knows or something like that. Or
sequel to James Bond. That's actually what the Pierce Brosnan Bond is called today.
What was it?
Tomorrow Never
Never
Knows.
Tomorrow Never. It had Tomorrow in the title that first weekend, right?
It was Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, and then
nope.
And then they were like, "What about Live, Die, Repeat?" And then somebody was like, "What if we had just called it what the book was called? All You Need Is Kill."
Which
it was just cool, right?
And that, I guarantee more people would have seen that. Excellent. It was a good movie. And more people would have seen it. If they called it.
My biggest complaint with what I will call the average movie fan are these people, and honestly, I'm going to kind of point a finger at old Marty Scorsese here too, where they're like, "Oh God, there's so many comic book movies and space shows, and and I'm just like, hey man,
did you see though?
There's other movies.
Did you see he clarified that? And as soon as he clarified it, I thought, oh, why didn't you just say that?
Well, he clarified it because he was like, oh.
I sound like an old man.
Here come the nerds.
To get off my lawn.
Here come the nerds.
No, he clarified it, and he said, what I meant was, it disappoints me that Hollywood is 100% blockbuster driven now, because they it's harder to make a movie when you have to go in and say, look, this isn't going to make you a lot of money, but it needs to be made.
But yeah, I don't. You know what, Jason? I think it's such a hard thing because it is a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if
they don't make money, they go out of business.
Right. Well, nobody gets paid. As we know from the strike and stuff like that, come on.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, man, all we wanted was $1 more, right? No.
That was shocking during the strike to learn what some of these writers were.
Were not
getting paid.
Or like you're like, oh, that's still airing on Netflix and is the most popular thing, but you get $0.
Yeah.
Right.
That was, for those who didn't follow that. That's really what the writer's strike was about. Is streaming was now a dominant platform for content distribution, but the big production companies, the people who were making a lot of money off of streaming, just kind of never wrote the writers of the content into that, and it's amazing they thought they could get away with it. But
no, you're 100% right. I think, there's that, and then going back to your original comment, though, to me, I don't think. I want to rephrase the box office driven stuff. Is they're looking for, like, Hollywood could look at a movie, right? Like, let's take Dumb Money for an example, right? Maybe it costs under $10 million to make or less, and it makes $50 million at the box office. That's a profit. Right.
Yeah.
Now, but it's not.
Seth Rogen's getting 10 a movie now, isn't he?
But my thing is that
he's in it.
That's the kind of thing but it doesn't do ripples, right? And so people aren't looking at the margins and going, "Oh my gosh, that really made a ton of money." In some situations, it will, right, where it makes extreme, like. I hate to bring this up, but like Paranormal Activity is a good example. My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where a movie costs $20 to $30 million to make, and it makes $300 million at the box office. So those kind of things get the attention.
Those are low risks.
Well,
like Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 and Dumb Money seems like one that'll probably make more after the theaters. like the Big Short did.
Yeah, I think
where so this isn't really a draw people to theaters kind of movie, but then once it hits a streaming service,
there's so many
talked about a lot.
Yeah, and there's so many things. There's so many intangibles, right?
Yeah.
So here's an example. Let's say Dumb Money doesn't make a ton of doesn't really rake it in at the box office like Barbie, but people go, oh man, Paul Dano, great performance.
Yeah.
Then somebody watches it on streaming and they're like, oh, Paul Dano, he's great. Then the next Paul Dano movie that comes out, they're like, oh, I'm going to go see that, right? So there's intangibles that you can never really kind of put, you can't put a pin in it and you can't really attach a dollar to it. It's just, it's almost like branding that companies do. Like,
yeah,
I always love when companies they're like, hey, how much... Well, I don't know. We don't want to pay for that. And you're like, well, it's branding. And that's the biggest thing that you can't ever, it's hard to put a dollar on branding, right?
Yeah.
It really is sometimes. But
everybody knows it's important.
It
right?
is. Yeah. You've got to kind of, you've got to sort of blanket yourself. So yeah, I would just say, but again, going back to the other thing I said, I really, it bothers me when people think, well, the only thing that's out there is, Marvel movies and Star Wars or, Fast and Furious. There are other movies. You gotta like branch out, you know. An example would be the movie that we're going to talk about today, The Creator, which I'm sure people have seen trailers for, and they're like, "Well, I don't know what that is. I don't care."
The poster made me not care. The trailer made me care more. And then when we heard Gareth
Edwards,
I cared a lot.
He's not super. He's not still a household name. Anyone that loves Rogue One or Godzilla, knows. Like they're like, oh yeah, Gareth Edwards. Like,
I tell everyone I know to not miss Monsters. But Monsters is hard to describe. Is it a horror movie? Is it sci-fi? Is it a drama?
I would say it's a sci-fi thriller.
Yeah, it has some creepy. I mean, it's about monsters, but it's more a character. Yeah.
Well, the thing I love about Gareth Edwards,
he's really good. Is my point as a writer.
Yeah, he's good at. He likes to hold back. Like Godzilla is a great example. For that movie, today, like example, I know you and I both like Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
But you see Kong like the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder, I'm like, okay, maybe that's like reverse psychology, right? They're like, we're not just going to drag this out. Like we want to grab you.
The reveal
so it's just like, boom, there he is. And you're like, whoa,
There's a great Japanese horror film that does this. It's called The Host.
Yeah, yeah.
And they literally, like, you see the monster in the first, I think 30 seconds of the movie, and the way that works is that there's no big reveal, and so you're then paying attention to the characters,
right?
Which is what the story's actually about. And I thought that was actually pretty creative.
But it's the Jaws, it's the Jaws factor, right? Where Jaws, you don't see the full shark until the last third of the movie.
Yeah. Greatest reveal though in Jaws because you see bits and pieces. You see a half a face or half.
Well,
a nose
remember it has
inside.
the shocking opening scene.
Yeah,
and then you don't see really anything after that, and then you see the little Kittner boy. I don't know why that makes me laugh when I say it. Poor kid. R.I.P.
It's because of that meme. The little Kittner boy.
You just you look in the back. Everyone's leaving the beach, and you see this like gush of blood and this like banana float thing kind of just fold, and then and maybe a part of a tail, and you go, wait, what? And it's so horrific that you go, hang on, and then you don't really.
His dog too.
Yeah, Pippet.
Isn't Pippet part of it?
Is it Pippet or Pippin?
Or does Pippet survive? I don't
No, Pippet, he croaks.
He croaks.
And speaking of blockbusters, I was thinking when you said, Scorsese, it's we can kind of point the finger at Hollywood in general. But really at the end of the day, the two guys that completely changed Hollywood with their movies was George Lucas in 1977 with Star Wars and Steven Spielberg with Jaws. Both those movies changed, Hollywood became, to your point, a blockbuster, season-oriented.
Yeah. And that's what Scorsese says It was a follow-up interview done just a little while ago. I just read this last week, and I don't remember who he was talking to, but it was in Variety. He's talking to somebody. He said, I caught a lot of flack for my criticism of comic book movies, and he said, look, it's not the comic book movies. That's not what I meant. He said, but when I made that comment, those were the blockbusters. And he said, that's what I was talking about, is Hollywood is they're chasing the blockbusters so much that sometimes it's hard to make art. And now I've always found Scorsese to be a little bit full of himself. I like his movies a lot, but he seems to be implying that he is making art and everyone else is making money-making crap.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair, because I think there's a lot of art in the Avengers movies. I think there's a lot of art in...
Yeah, I got in a huge argument with somebody on Twitter about this, that I was talking about how, art... there's no right or wrong answer for art. I could sit here and talk about how, The Last Jedi is art. And some angry fanboy would say, no, it's not. And,
especially that Salt Desert battle scene.
Or the scene in the middle of the throne room with the red,
like that is some
ninjas,
of the
Jedi ninjas.
Coolest cinematography in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, and that's, speaking of Star Wars, I want to make one brief comment, because we don't really ever, we spend some time talking about television, but let's be honest, there hasn't been a ton of television. There's some Star Wars, like this Ahsoka. I wanted to say that watching Ahsoka has made me realize that the prequels could have been good.
Yeah.
But George Lucas, love him, great storyteller, world builder, but he should have had another director and writer.
Ahsoka was the one of those that I was disinterested. I was going to watch it, but I was not excited just because of the era in which her character comes about, and it's really good.
It is good. One of the better ones, up there with Obi-Wan and Andor.
Very good stuff. But go see Dumb Money. It's a funny story. It has some funny people in it. And it is literally the story of how a bunch of amateur investors took advantage of a short squeeze loophole and brought down one of the biggest hedge funds on Wall Street, because the hedge funds were looking at these amateurs and going, what do they know we don't? And they started chasing them and copying them. They didn't know what they were doing. They were screwing around. Brought a hedge fund down. It's a really funny true story, but it also kind of shows you how ridiculous Wall Street is. And so that's in theaters here in Logan. On the other side, though, we'll talk about the big opener this weekend everybody's talking about in theaters here in Logan, directed by the writer and director of Rogue One, Gareth Edwards, the creator. That's next, after this look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. And what it appears to be now from UDOT traffic, that the southbound lane at US 8991, apparently US 91, US 8991 is closed in the Mattaway area because of an earlier crash. And apparently they're still cleaning up from that. So it appears to be southbound traffic through the Mattaway area, 8991, is apparently closed from what we are hearing because of that accident which occurred in the 4 o'clock hour. The driver of a semi that was involved in a crash with a passenger vehicle on an Iron County highway was killed as a result of his injuries. Officials with the Utah Department of Public Safety said that troopers responded to this crash just after 7:45 Wednesday morning on I-15 in Parowan. Authorities say that a semi-truck heading southbound was cut off by a passenger vehicle and then swerved to the left, crossed the median over the northbound lanes, and veered off the northbound shoulder. The semi reportedly continued through a fence before coming to rest in a field. Upon arrival, Iron County troopers began taking statements from the 60-year-old driver of the semi pursuant to the crash report. While interacting with medical personnel, officials said the 60-year-old semi-truck driver was coherent before abruptly losing consciousness. The man then came to and was insistent on wanting to stay back with the semi to take care of his cargo. though he was eventually transported to the hospital by a medical helicopter after the scene of the crash was cleared. Troopers were later notified that the man was pronounced dead in the hospital at around 11:15 a.m. Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes said he was shocked and deeply saddened and will no longer endorse anyone in the U.S. Senate race after sexual misconduct allegations against Tim Ballard, whom he is known to have a close relationship with. In a statement released on social media, Reyes broke his silence on allegations that have been made against Ballard, the founder and former CEO of Operation Underground Railroad. The statement read in part that Reyes was shocked and deeply saddened by these allegations, but these women must be heard to ensure all credible evidence can be presented. He said, until we know more through the resolution of these cases and complaints, I strongly believe that Tim Ballard and the Underground Railroad organization deserve a presumption of innocence, just as women coming forward on these issues should have a presumption of credibility. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear, warmer, low around 50. Breezy tomorrow, south winds 15 to 25 miles an hour, partly cloudy skies, upper 70s for the high, and then showers in the forecast for Saturday night and Sunday. It's been to 73 today. KVNU weather brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. Napa features all the best brands: Croyle, Amsoil, BG, Schaefer, Seafoam. Find the best parts and oil to keep your car running at its best. 5 locally owned locations from Preston to Providence. Napa Auto Parts. For the latest news, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology cares about you and your hearing. Dr. Paul Danes has always called Cache Valley home and cares about its people. And Dr. Danes offers state-of-the-art equipment, allowing him to provide the best service and care possible when it comes to your hearing. So if your hearing isn't what it used to be, give Dr. Danes a call at 753-HEAR or visit CacheValleyHearing.com to see what they can do for you.
Back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
A disappointment in the effort to prevent a federal government shutdown late tomorrow night. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's short-term spending bill with up to 30% cuts to some agencies was rejected by some fellow Republicans. The first plea deal in the President Trump-alleged election interference racketeering conspiracy in Georgia. A bail bondsman, Scott Hall. ABC's Aaron Katursky.
He has agreed to plead guilty, and he was sentenced to effectively 5 years probation. He needs to write a letter of apology, serve 200 hours of community service, and crucially, testify against his co-defendants in this case.
Grand jury in Las Vegas has indicted the last living suspect in the 1996 killing of Tupac Shakur and the rapper's death, Dwayne Keffe D. Davis. The auto workers' strike expanding to a Ford plant in Chicago and a GM factory in Michigan. Lisa Pickens works at the latter.
As this go on, we're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. We're tired of being pushed backwards.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
At Stotz Equipment, your Cache Valley John Deere dealer, they have the equipment you need to get the job done. Handle heavier duty chores around the farm, property, or job site with John Deere compact utility tractors and compact construction equipment. They have an option for all your jobs with premium features and the right size tractor for your operation. Find out which tractor is right for you. Stotz Equipment is located 451 West 8th North in Preston, Idaho. Visit the store or check them out online at StotzEquipment.com.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People movie show with Andy Morgan here in the studio, who has the cold sweats now.
Why don't you?
Because of the Dave Matthews Band.
If I end up going south when I die, I
want that played at your
no.
funeral?
I can tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be me sitting in a fiery cave in leather shorts, listening to Somebody in
Early
the
Dave Matthews
no,
Band.
somebody's gonna have that on the background, just run repeat, and I'll be like, ugh. Or Banana Pancakes by Jack Johnson. One of those that'll be like on just a back and forth between those two, and then playing will be just one Muppets episode over and over again, and I just will be like,
who was the other?
I guess I should have lived better.
There was another artist that was really big, sort of in the pre-Jack Johnson, but like a predecessor to Jack Johnson. Simon Deer Valley. Anyway.
Kenny Loggins?
No, I'm trying to remember his name, but yeah, there was
Ed Sheeran.
It's like the mid-'90s version of Ed Sheeran, like that level of mediocrity.
Oh man!
But I can't remember Trey. No, anyway,
Josh Greben,
Trey something. It was just the '90s were
were not fun.
A horrible time. Duncan Sheik, remember that?
Oh.
He was popular.
Now I'm barely breathing, and I can't find the air. It's all around you, man. Your song makes no sense.
Greatest line in a Sopranos episode.
That guy and
there's no context to it. You just hear Paulie Walnut say, "So I told him to take his Duncan Sheik CDs," and I can't repeat the rest of it. But there's no context. It's just Tony's walking through a room and you hear Paulie Walnut say that sentence.
Duncan Sheik.
Very funny.
That would have been a Duncan Sheik, and what was the other? John Cicada. I wish there was a festival with those two
to avoid.
It's the Cicada Chic Festival.
Nap time.
Here at Burning Man.
Nap time is what that is.
It's like, hey, have you always wanted to feel like you're riding an elevator all the time?
Speaking of Burning Man, a lot of the wealthy tech bros that got stranded at Burning Man are putting their money together and soliciting. They're looking to commission a notable director to make a documentary about their experience.
Nobody cares, tech bros.
Could you be any more self-important and yet?
Do you remember
at the same time mediocre?
When I was a rich tech bro and I drove down to the border and I wore my cowboy hat backwards with my Dead Space T-shirt?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm here to scope it out. Just going to see if I can send everyone to Mars.
The Elon stands kind of
weird.
Wait,
how did you know I was
they
talking
weird
about
me out
that?
Sometimes. Because I saw someone actually making an argument that it was an intentional metaphor. And this person, like 3 or 4 tweets, lengthy tweets, explaining why the backwards cowboy hat wasn't a rookie mistake that someone does when they rush a stunt together, which is what Elon did.
I would say, look at what his kids.
Explaining that rather it was 4D chess.
I would say
And it was an elegant metaphor.
Look at his children's names and then reverse your opinion.
What have you seen this guy do so far that would make you think that he was playing chess? Period.
Yeah, hard pass.
This is.
Pass.
This is a cheater at checkers, is what we're dealing with Elon Musk.
Hey, how'd you do that? I want to say this. So
movies.
The creator, you mentioned before we went to break or to the news that it was Gareth Edwards. We already kind of gave his intro.
Yeah.
This is kind of an interesting cast. You're not going to notice everybody. It's got Gemma Chan, she was in Crazy Rich Asians. She was also in the Eternals. She has I don't want to call it a minor role, but she is, she's kind of featured throughout, but not for any extended period of time. The main character in this is John David Washington, who is the son of Denzel. Shorter version of Denzel, but I tell you what, if I did not have sight and I went into every movie with John David Washington, I'd be like, Denzel? Because he sounds just like him. He sounds just like his dad, and he's a great actor. I mean, talk about. I'm glad that he. Everyone knows that he's Denzel Washington's son, but it's not like you can tell that's not why he's getting jobs, right?
Yeah,
he's getting jobs because he's excellent.
Just like Danny McBride, who's also in this movie.
I don't know who Danny McBride plays. I saw that after, and I could not figure it out.
I've heard that he is unrecognizable. Well, I've heard many people are unrecognizable in this movie.
Yeah, the basic premise of this, because
Danny McBride, for people who aren't familiar, he's in every movie with
James Franco. You can pretty much find him eastbound and
And
down,
he's always-
Righteous Gemstones.
And he's always playing Danny McBride.
Kind of made his way with Tropic Thunder, is kind of where he made his debut.
He's a funny guy, but
no,
he's,
he is. But he is kind
always Danny McBride.
He is, and
he can't act.
Weirdly, he's actually one of the screenwriters behind the Halloween reboot that started in 2018.
Really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, so Danny's got some. He's multi-talented.
That's funny.
The plot of this movie, though, it's really the way they start this movie off. I thought was fantastic. It's showing some kind of old, sort of like 1950s, 60s footage of like, hey, this is the future with robots, and they
really?
and they bleed it in, and it hits like kind of like you want to say like the 90s and 80s, and this is the part that I think people have seen in other movies or we've read it in books. But, it shows like robots, artificial intelligence integrated with society to help and protect humans. And then what it shows in the intro to this movie is that there was a nuclear bomb that detonated in literally downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Killed 2 million people. And
now, you don't see any of this, right? You're just told this?
They show
oh, okay.
It's not
it's part of the setup,
right?
Okay.
And then it essentially they kind of explain like they're looking for the head or the god of this AI, Nirmata, I believe is what they call it, and essentially all the AI kind of flocks to what they call New Asia.
Yeah.
And so the United States is essentially, they feel like if it's not eradicated, that if AI is not eradicated,
going to become a bit of a problem.
Right. And as this movie goes on, John David Washington's character to start the show he's almost like a CIA kind of embedded agent trying to find Nirmata. You get to this isn't a spoiler or anything, but he kind of, like we see in other movies, he kind of goes in too deep.
Okay.
And then when the United States tries to kind of conduct a raid, things go wrong.
And he's there.
Yeah, and then he's flash forward, I can't remember how many years, 5 or 6 years, and he's back in LA, working kind of a cruddy job. And they come back to him kind of like Rambo, and they say, "Hey man, we need your help. We think we found this,
a special mission for you."
Yep.
Why him? Or is that a spoiler?
Well, so he was looking and trying to get embedded with these AI. I don't want to call them robots. Humanoids might be the right word for it. I mean, they look like humans from the front, but they have some definite robotic things that clearly identify them. I can't even remember.
Which is interesting because there are also still robots, right? The trailer.
Yes.
The trailer implies
they're kind of both.
Because they're like service robots that are a part of.
It's kind of horrific in a few ways. It's the life that they give these creatures it's watching some of the scenes where they're trying to destroy them is really it's almost
the trailer implies that.
Yeah,
there's some
there's some stuff that's hard to watch.
Whereas like the Terminator movies of a similar vein,
but they're
blowing
bad.
Up these chrome metallic,
right.
skeletal,
look kind of silly.
And in this case, they're cutting apart things that look like human beings.
Yeah, and I mean, and just it's not even actually that. Even the robots that don't look like humans, their reactions and what they say. And their body movements are so human-like that it makes it difficult. Like when So
now, really quick, this is a huge cast. I'm looking at this. 3 scrolls. Are any of these people just voices for AI for CGI things, or are all these people? Allison Janney, the press secretary from The West Wing.
She's a main part. Yeah.
So these aren't just voices for.
She's actually kind of a villain.
Some CGI character
in the movie.
Okay.
Yep. She's not a voice.
I want to talk to Mr. Edwards about this, though. There's a character named Dr. Thanky. I don't like that.
It's supposed to be Dr. Hanky.
That's the best name
Mr.
you can come up
Hanky.
with. But
Mr. Thanky?
Dr. Thanky.
Yeah. It's, again, it's told in like 3 parts.
Okay. It's lengthy, right? 2.5 hours.
It is pretty lengthy. I would say the first fourth and the last fourth are, really grab you. There is some, I don't want to call it downtime. I think that I gave it an A- because I did think there was some meandering in the middle that I got a little snoozy.
Anything close to Spielberg's
AI
no.
wandering? Oh my gosh.
Not that kind of wandering. Okay.
No.
Okay, I can
weirdly,
handle
I
that.
actually watched part of that.
Really?
Like about 3 or 4 days ago.
Ooh, one of the few movies I've seen exactly one time.
It's literally Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense. But they're like, hey, this time pretend you're Pinocchio.
I see software.
Yeah, he's just got that little hey. Which what makes it so horrible too is then you see Haley Joel Osment in The Boys, and you're like, oh, poor guy. Sometimes it just doesn't work out for folks. You know what I mean?
I never thought of that.
Because he's just such a little tyke in those movies. He's like, he's like, I'm looking for the Blue Angel,
and then he's
I see dead people.
What's his character's name in The Boys? I forget.
I have no idea. I just know that he's the sad sack in that show.
He's always on the losing end of
But I think you'll like creator. Again, Gareth Edwards. I think if this was handed to anyone else, I mean, they could probably do it. But what I love about Gareth Edwards is he uses enough CGI to create the spectacle, the size, this world building that makes everything super uncomfortable. In fact, one of the creepiest things in the show.
Same thing he did with Monsters. Because remember, most of Monsters you're seeing a leg or a shadow.
Yep.
Or you only see the actual monsters from far away a couple of times.
Yep. He did the
throughout
same
the whole
thing.
movie, and yet it is so tense.
Yep. He brought that over to Godzilla, and I think he does that in Rogue One.
That's very cool.
We always see the Death Star. Remember in Rogue One, we always see the Death Star in other Star Wars movies just hanging out in space, and we were always like, it's pretty big. It's not a moon. It's a space station.
Yeah.
But then there's that one shot in Rogue One where it's going over the planet.
Yeah.
And you just
Leaving
kind
a
of
shadow.
see it park, right?
Yeah.
And it, and then the clouds kind of like part, and you're just like, okay, like you're getting the view from like on the ground, and you're like, man, that's massive, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a floating concrete ball in space.
And it has a tendency, like he did with Monsters. So the tension in Monsters is all perspective driven,
right?
Because you get this idea these are huge, and they're
you nailed it. Perspective. He brings the immense perspective in a way that doesn't. It's not cheesy. It's almost like goosebump inducing, where you're like, oh my gosh, that's big.
Now some of this looks pretty nasty though. There's a multi-track tank thinger. Crushing some tents in one scene.
Yeah.
So it looks very. It looks very Vietnam War movie-y.
I would say that
I can't think of another way to describe it.
No, I think
it looks like that.
It's
in the
pretty
trailer.
apt. I think there's some things we can take away from it. It's not. This isn't like I wouldn't call this a message movie by any way, shape, or form. I think if anything, there's this idea of rushing to judgment about a group that, people getting blamed for something that they didn't do, and just like overreaction and fear, stuff like that. The scene after the nuclear bomb in Los Angeles, where I assume it's the president, but he's wearing a military uniform, and he's addressing Congress, seems like felt like post 9/11 axis of evil kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Rah-rah.
Yeah. So yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a weird. I can see probably from the studio's point of like, where do we put this, right? Because it's not quite a summer movie. I think if you put this in May, June, July, it gets swamped by something else. But it doesn't quite feel like a September movie either. I don't know. I don't know where I would put it. I don't think it belongs. It's almost kind of homeless.
I said that as we started. The trailer has the feel of a summer blockbuster.
It does, but it's not. It's too.
It's Gareth Edwards who.
Yeah, it's too.
Even his Godzilla was a muted blockbuster.
Yeah.
I mean, not money wise.
Well, and that
it
came
did
out
really well.
and that came out in May too. That was like early.
your typical summer blockbuster action film.
Yeah, you're right. It was a tough one. Like I said, I don't know where it belongs. I think it's kind of homeless, but it's worth seeing. And what I tweeted last night was I said, look, don't complain to me that there's no original movies in Hollywood, and then have the creator have empty seats over the weekend, because it's there, right?
I honestly, my guess with Gareth Edwards attached is you're going to see something original every time. I'm not saying the guy's never going to have a flop. Every director does.
Yeah.
Spielberg, AI.
I don't think has Gareth Edwards had one though?
Not yet. So I that would be confidence enough for me to see it. You'll be I would without having seen it, be willing to wager you'll be entertained and it'll make you think a little bit. And one thing I want to point out though to listeners, seeing this might be a little difficult because it's a long film, and I don't know what else is going on. The show times are off at the megaplexes here in Logan.
Yeah, and it's in both theaters. It's in Providence and the University Theater.
Yeah. But it's playing at
6:50,
6:50, which is normal time, and then 9:55. Between the 20 minutes of commercials and the 2.5-hour film, I don't know who's.
Yeah, well, you go to the 9:55, you're going to be getting out of the movie at about 12:30.
Yeah,
right. So it's, but yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the seating charts right now for the down at the university, and it's not. I get it too. I mean, fall. There's other things, right? There's other things to do.
Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol.
Go see this movie.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you don't talk to me about there's no original things if you aren't going to,
Yeah.
There's things.
Support them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's
yes,
fair.
sir. Yes, sir.
So before our last break, your final grade?
I give it an A-, just for a little bit of slowness and kind of meandering in the middle. But I think it was good.
Very cool.
Underrated. I think it's going to get passed up for a lot of things just because it's one of those underrated movies but people will keep talking about it for a while.
All of his movies have been like that. So very cool. All right, the Creator in theaters here in Logan alongside the Paw Patrol, the Mighty Patrol. I don't know why they repeat that in the title. And The Nun 2, things that have been at Expendables 4 for some reason. There's a lot to see.
If you want to see a comedy, go see The Nun 2, like we said last week.
If you want a good chuckle at a horror movie.
Funny show.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like my second favorite comedy next to Airplane.
Unintentionally hilarious, but sad, too, at the same time. We'll be back right after this.
Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
This is Dr. Red, chiropractic physician with Red River Health and Wellness. Are you suffering with fatigue, brain fog, headaches, intestinal issues, weight gain, and you haven't been able to find any answers?
I was struggling with constantly being hot, struggling with not sleeping, being able to fall asleep, stay asleep, or even wake up the next morning. I had very high levels of inflammation and memory loss. Memory loss was the scariest part.
Red River Health and Wellness can help you.
The sleep improved, my memory's coming back. Every time I remember something, I still get really excited. I go walking every morning now, which I've never done before. I've always really wanted to be that type of person that wakes up early enough to enjoy the sunrise. I get to do that every morning now.
Our goal is to teach you and educate you so you know how to manage your condition a lot more effectively and you know what to do and what not to do for the rest of your life.
Schedule your appointment today at 855-55-RIVER. Red River Health and Wellness with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
The people have spoken. Steel-coated epoxy floors of Cache Valley is the 3-time gold medalist for Best of Northern Utah. Known for their extremely durable floor coating system, they can completely transform your concrete, garages and shops, porches and patios. They coat it all. With over 25 years of operation, Steel-coated epoxy floors is Cache Valley's premier coating professionals. Contact Steel-coated floors of Cache Valley today. Find them online at scfcachevalley.com or call 435-512-1284.
Is it time to upgrade or transform your dining area? Stop in and browse U&I Furniture's big selection of dining sets. U&I just picked up a spectacular assortment from different brand name manufacturers. They have small tables for 2 up to a big table for all family gatherings. U&I has lots of options, some with benches and swivel stools. And make sure you check out the chairs U&I has. Accent chairs, recliners, upholstered chairs, and more. There really is always a better buy at U&I. U&I Furniture in downtown Logan.
Welcome back to KVN News For the People. Andy Morgan and the For the People movie show. Just a couple of minutes left.
I know what you're going to ask me.
What?
Because I'm psychic. You're going to ask me what we're going to talk about.
Your favorite Madonna movie? I was just going to point this out really quick. There's a guy in the Creator
Dick
movie
Tracy.
named Amar Shada Patel that's listed as playing a character name, but apparently he the Maui guy that plays all of the clones in the Star Wars movies, the Australian guy, or no, he's from Tasmania. This guy plays all the simulants, whatever those are.
Yeah,
but he's really tall and skinny.
Yeah, he's
and he was also in Willow.
Willow. Hey,
and the Wheel of
I am
Time.
going to tell you what we are going to talk about next week. You ready? Are you
ready
excited?
for that?
I know you're excited.
I'm kind of behind, so I don't know what's coming.
On Friday, we're going to talk about The Exorcist Believer on October 6th. We're going to start talking more scary movies as we get into October because, it's good times. And I will see that. I will see that.
The Exorcist. I went back and watched. Friedkin actually did the third one.
Oh, that one's actually good.
It's actually good.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten that.
Who's the actor in that? I always forget his name.
I don't remember.
He was in The Changeling. George C. Scott.
George C. Scott.
He's good,
and it's really good. It's kind of more of a.
It's a detective.
Like a whodunit kind of.
Well, and his character in the book I'm telling you, the book is great, scary, and like a crime thriller.
Really,
movie, silly.
Oh. Yeah.
I know it was scary in the 70s, but Exorcist now, I'm like, this is hilarious.
Yeah, the first one doesn't hold up. The second one, don't even see it.
What a funny show.
And the third one, see it, but not because it's in the Exorcist franchise, because it's actually a good movie.
Just pretend there was never a second or first even.
Yeah. It lives inside. We forgot to talk about that. We can do that next week.
Mr. Howdy.